Welcome to Infinite Universe with interesting episode. In 1991, a group of civilian divers went out on a deep-sea exploration trip. They didn't expect to find anything unusual that day. But while scanning the bottom of the ocean, they came across something that didn't make sense at all. It was a submarine, resting deep in the water at a place where no one expected to find one. This discovery turned out to be a huge mystery, one that would take years to uncover. As they kept exploring the wreck over the next several years, they discovered shocking things that challenged everything people thought they knew. What these divers eventually found inside the sunken Nazi submarine was something that would leave anyone speechless. This was not just another war story, this was a forgotten chapter of history coming back to the surface. The story of this submarine, known as U-869, is one of the strangest and most mysterious of World War II. It all started with a submarine that disappeared without a trace. During World War II, the Atlantic Ocean was one of the most dangerous places for ships. German U-boats roamed beneath the waves like silent hunters, sneaking up on Allied ships and attacking them without warning. These submarines were deadly, and they played a huge role in cutting off supplies and damaging the Allied forces. The German U-boats were one of Hitler's deadliest weapons in the war. They were fast, deadly, and could disappear beneath the waves without leaving a trace. There were hundreds of these submarines during the war. Most of them were destroyed or captured. A few, though, simply vanished. They were never heard from again. One of the most mysterious of all these lost submarines was U-869. This submarine was launched in 1943 and was a Type IXC-40 U-boat, one of the largest and most powerful long-range submarines built by Nazi Germany. It was about 250 feet long and was equipped with 6 torpedo tubes. Its job was to cross the Atlantic Ocean and attack enemy ships in areas controlled by the Allies. Its mission was simple: cause as much damage as possible and then disappear without a trace. The captain of U-869 was Helmut Neuerberg, an experienced officer who had served in the German Navy for many years. In late 1944, as Germany began to lose the war, U-869 was sent on its first combat mission. According to wartime records, the submarine was supposed to head to the waters near Gibraltar, a strategic area where many Allied ships passed through. The plan was for U-869 to attack ships in that region. But the German military was in chaos by this time. There were problems with communication, leadership, and planning. Some historians believe that U-869's mission may have been changed while it was already at sea. On February 11, 1945, an American destroyer and a Coast Guard cutter reported that they had attacked and sunk a German submarine near Gibraltar. Based on the timing and location, the U.S. military believed that the submarine they had sunk was U-869. Germany didn't provide any information to contradict this, probably because their command structure was falling apart. So it was recorded that U-869 had been destroyed off the coast of Gibraltar. All 56 crew members were presumed dead. There were no survivors, no distress signals, and no wreckage found. For decades, nobody questioned this story. It was just one more submarine that had disappeared during the war. But years later, people began to take a closer look at this story. And when they did, they started to notice that some things didn't add up. First of all, there were no clear photos or sonar images of any wreck near Gibraltar that matched U-869. Wartime reports were often based on poor information, especially during battles. Many times, submarines were reported as destroyed when they had actually escaped. The Atlantic Ocean is massive, and during the 1940s, sonar and tracking technology were not very advanced. Mistakes were common. Second, German records from that time were either incomplete or unclear. By 1945, Germany's military was in ruins. Many radio signals were lost, records were destroyed, and the ones that survived were hard to understand. Some experts now think that U-869 may never have even reached Gibraltar. One of the most chilling clues was the submarine's last radio signal. German U-boats were required to send updates during their missions. U-869 sent its last message while it was still in the North Atlantic, thousands of miles away from Gibraltar. After that, nothing. Total silence. It was as if the submarine had vanished into thin air. As researchers and historians began looking deeper into the mystery, they found more and more questions. Was the submarine that was sunk near Gibraltar actually a different one? Was U-869 given new orders while at sea? Or did something even stranger happen to it? For over 40 years, the submarine remained a mystery. Families of the crew had no idea what had really happened. They had no wreckage to visit, no graves to mourn over, just a name on a memorial and a record that didn't make sense. Even the experts didn't agree. Some military historians insisted that the submarine had been destroyed near Gibraltar. But divers, researchers, and wreck hunters weren't convinced. Then, decades later, something very strange appeared on a sonar scan off the coast of New Jersey. The waters off the coast of New Jersey are filled with shipwrecks. Many ships sank there during storms, wars, or collisions. For local divers, it's a popular place to explore. But in the summer of 1991, something unusual showed up on the sonar screen. A team of experienced divers, John Chatterton, Richie Kohler, and others, were exploring unknown wrecks using sonar. The waters they were diving in were not easy. The currents were strong, the visibility was poor, and the depths were dangerous. These were not casual dives. They were highly technical missions that required careful planning and specialized equipment. About 60 miles from the coast, at a depth of 230 feet, their sonar picked up something long and narrow. It looked man-made. It looked like a submarine. The divers were curious, and soon that curiosity turned into a deep obsession. On their first dive to the wreck, they could barely see anything because of how murky the water was. The cold water made things even harder. The submarine was partly buried in sand and covered in fishing nets. But it was clear that this was a submarine, a big one. And the strangest thing was, it wasn't supposed to be there. There were no records of any World War II submarine being lost in that area. At first, they couldn't find any identification. There was no name, no flag, no sign that told them what submarine it was. The structure was badly damaged, the tower had collapsed, and the outside of the submarine was cracked and rusting. It was falling apart slowly. The divers had no idea what they had found. Was it American? Russian? German? No one knew. Because they didn't know its name, the divers gave it a nickname, Yohu. The mystery of Yohu became a puzzle that didn't make sense. No known submarine from World War II had been reported missing in that area. So what was this? The divers began returning to the wreck again and again. These were not easy dives. They needed special gas mixtures and had to stop and rest at different depths during their return to avoid getting sick. The risks were enormous. Divers could become confused, pass out, or suffer from dangerous conditions like the bends. But every dive brought new clues. Inside the submarine, they found equipment and gauges that were clearly German. The labels were in German, and everything was measured in metric units. There were German pipes, valves, and instruments. There was no doubt now, this was a German U-boat. But which one? They brought back small items from the wreck. Plates, bowls, and tools. Some of them had markings, including the symbol of the German Navy. But nothing confirmed the identity of the submarine. Then, during one dive, they found something that changed everything, a butter knife. It was old and tarnished but still intact. On the handle was a name, Horenberg. It wasn't a company name, it was a person's name. The divers started digging into naval records and crew lists from World War II. That name matched a crewman, George Horenberg, who had served on U-869. Now they had a real lead. They kept searching both underwater and in old archives. Later, they found more parts inside the wreck, valves and engine parts with serial numbers. They checked those numbers with the records of the German shipyard that had built U-869. The numbers matched perfectly. There was no longer any doubt. After years of searching, the divers had finally solved the mystery. In 1997, 6 years after the first dive, the U.S. Navy officially confirmed that the wreck off the coast of New Jersey was indeed U-869. This changed everything. For more than 50 years, people had believed that U-869 was destroyed near Gibraltar. But it hadn't been. It had been lost off the coast of the United States, far from where anyone expected it to be. No one knows exactly how or why it ended up there. Some think the submarine may have been ordered to change its course. Others think it was lost, confused by faulty navigation. There are even theories that it was hit by one of its own torpedoes. Whatever happened, the truth remained hidden for decades. But thanks to the bravery and dedication of a few civilian divers, the mystery was finally solved. They didn't just find a wreck. They brought closure to the families of 56 men who had vanished without a trace. They proved that sometimes, history can still surprise us, even after so many years. They discovered the remains of U-869, rusting silently at the bottom of the Atlantic, thousands of miles from where the official records claimed it had been lost. When the identity of the wreck was finally confirmed, it shook the very foundation of naval history. It also sent shockwaves through the lives of those connected to the submarine, including Herbert Gashowski. Gashowski had spent years quietly haunted by the mission he'd narrowly avoided. After the war, he lived a modest life in Germany, working as a mechanic and starting a family. He never talked much about his time in the Kriegsmarine, and when he did, it was only in vague, impersonal terms. But in the late 1990s, when news began to surface about a mysterious German submarine discovered off the coast of New Jersey, something inside him changed. The photos, the reports, the slow realization, it all pointed to the very U-boat he was once assigned to. He kept his reaction private at first, but eventually reached out to the team of American divers who had brought the story of U-869 into the light. He offered them his recollections, shared what little he knew about the submarine's final days before departure, and spoke about the men he had trained with, the friends he had lost. His testimony, while limited, added a deeply personal layer to the story. He confirmed the atmosphere of secrecy surrounding U-869's final mission. He recalled the cryptic behavior of certain officers, the unusual presence of intelligence operatives near the docks in the days before departure, and a whispered rumor among the crew that they might be headed somewhere beyond their official destination. While Herbert Gashowski had no definitive answers about U-869's true mission, he carried the survivor's burden, the quiet torment of being the one who lived. He would later say in a rare interview, "I was supposed to be on that boat. Every day I wonder why I wasn't." That simple statement, spoken decades after the war, captured the weight of a mystery that had refused to fade. And even now, with all that was discovered, from torpedo tubes to encrypted codebooks, from ceremonial daggers to propaganda leaflets, no one can say with certainty what U-869 was truly doing off the coast of America. Was it a patrol gone off course? A failed infiltration mission? Or an operation so classified that even the records were scrubbed before the war ended? The wreck of U-869 has since become a symbol. A haunting reminder that the ocean still holds secrets, that history is never as complete as we think, and that sometimes the greatest discoveries are not made by governments or armies, but by determined individuals who refuse to stop asking questions. To this day, the submarine remains where it was found, a twisted relic of a global conflict, silently resting at the bottom of the sea. And those who have dared to visit it, divers, researchers, historians, each walk away with the same feeling, that U-869 isn't just a lost vessel, it's a message from the past. A warning, a mystery, and a story still unfinished. Thanks for watching. Keep it and stay tuned. Like and subscribe our channel. Have a good day.